Please, Angela.
Right. Okay, well.
Also. I ejected him. I'll bring him back.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah, better wait. Yeah. Right, well, we're a few minutes late, but anyway, that was obviously Helen's had to brief you about the situation with item 9, so that's the reason for the delay, as you know. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to this meeting of the Community and Environment Committee. I don't think we're going to have any, as long as we don't need it, we're no members of the public here. We don't need to have a fire drill or anything or any advice about that, but welcome to the meeting. First of all, I must introduce, for the benefit of those viewing the meeting on YouTube, the officers who are here. I'll start this side. Helen Mitchell here on my left, and then Steve Capes, and Amanda Brown, and Vicky Hatfield. Then on my right, Tim Braun. I need to say something about Tim Braun because it's his final meeting after how many years, Tim?
36 and a half.
36 and a half. Yeah. So wish you all the best in the future, and it's good to have your help at this meeting. Obviously, you have a few jobs to do before you finally leave. Yes, very good. Well, congratulations on your retirement, and many thanks for all the work you've done for us over the years.
Thank you very much.
Right. And then Amanda Goodwill and Karen Carpenter, and then I must welcome Neil Bennett from Derbyshire County Council, who's here to. He's going to make a presentation actually about the Ashbourne Aquap scheme and so on. And I think that's it for introductions. So we go on to apologies for absence. There is one absentee, but I'm not sure. I think Councillor Buckler could be away, but I've not received any apologies, have we? That's
And
right.
apologies from Councillor O'Brien.
O'Brien, yes, Councillor O'Brien is my vice chair. He's definitely away.
Just a moment, Chair. We've got apologies from Councillor Boothroyd and Councillor Nash, and we've got Councillor Ripton substituting for Councillor O'Brien.
Right. Yeah, very good. Well, welcome then. Right, approval of minutes of the previous meeting, pages 5 to 8. Have you all read those through and you're happy with those? Would someone like to move correct record? Yeah.
Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Councillor Bates.
Seconded by Councillor Dobbs.
Councillor Dobbs, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Right,
Those
and
in favour?
oh yeah, better have a vote, haven't we? All in favour?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, then receive the minutes of the subcommittee meetings. There have been 3 since we last met. So
Take them on mass, Chair.
we can take them en masse, I think, yes. So Local Plan Subcommittee, 30th of November. Local Plan Subcommittee, 20th of December. And the same committee again on the 1st of February this year. So would someone like to move that we receive those minutes as well? Councillor Slack, yes.
Seconded by Councillor Franks.
Right, yeah. Right, all in favour?
Chair.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Right, we move on then to public participation, of which there's none. No. And interest. This could be,
Councillor
yeah.
Dobbs.
Chair, I'm named in the report of item 9 as fronting the council's case.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Dobbs. Anybody else? I do wonder if, in fact, when we had the briefing earlier, I think I need to declare an interest as a member of the Matlock Community Vision in terms of the Bakewell Road project. Just a personal interest. And I think is advice that members of Matlock Town Council should declare a personal interest as well. So I think there are 2 here. So
Yes, I'm happy to declare a non-pecuniary
yes.
personal interest.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. We move on to questions then. We haven't any questions from members.
None, Chair.
So we can go on to item 7, Ashbourne Air Quality Management Area Action Plan and Air Quality Monitoring, pages 21 to 30. So I'll call on Amanda and Karen to report, and Tim as well, to 3 of them. Who's going to do it? all three or just one. But anyway, you need to introduce this item, I think. And then I'll call
I'll
Neil
int-
Bennett.
Absolutely. I'll introduce the item, Chair, and Karen and Amanda may well be able to add to that. And as you mentioned, we have Neil Bennett, who's an Assistant Director, Highways Commissioning from Derbyshire County Council, with us tonight to speak to the county's point of view on all this as well. Members will remember that this meeting was originally scheduled for not quite a month ago, so we were due to meet on the 8th of February, and the report as written was current at that time. Things have moved on since then. In the report, I mentioned that we hadn't received a formal response from the County Council in reply to the letter that I sent on behalf of this committee, asking about the 20-mile-per-hour zone and the weight limits on the A515. We did receive a response to that. We did receive a reply to that letter prior to the last meeting, and that was included as a late submission, I suppose, with the agenda papers, and is now available for you all as well. So it's worth noting that reply has been received. In that reply, some updating was given as to the County Council's position in relation to the works intended to address air quality issues. So it's worth correcting the written record in relation to that, so that it's very clear that we do have that information in front of us. So the purpose of this committee was to receive that report and to make comment, to receive that letter and make comment upon it. The other purpose of the meeting was to consider the letter that this council has received from DEFRA, which is entitled a warning letter, telling us that we're late with the submission of the Air Quality Action Plan. The report asks members to consider how they wish to respond to that warning letter. A warning letter would normally be followed after 2 months by a final warning letter, and then ultimately can be followed by a direction from the Secretary of State telling us to do something. And that something can be anything from revoking the air quality management area to making us approve or telling us we have to approve an air quality action plan, kind of everything in between. So we've had a warning letter from DEFRA, and we clearly need to respond to that. The report suggests three options as to how committee might like to respond at this stage. First one of which is to submit an action plan without delay, and it's fair to say the warning letter does tell the council that unless we submit an action plan prior to the 8th of March, which is Friday, that we will receive a final warning letter. Another option is to write to DEFRA to tell them, explain the situation that we're in, and to tell them that we are seeking to approve an action plan as quickly as possible, and we'd hope to do that through the next meeting, perhaps, of this committee, or the soonest meeting we possibly can. The third option is to just go along with the process and let DEFRA bring their worst, which isn't something that I don't think that any of us officers would recommend you do. But those are the three options that we foresee. Members may have other ideas as well, but that's the purpose of the report, to consider those two items. Obviously very conscious that we have a colleague from the County Council here who can also talk to where we are with the plans at the moment. So there may be other issues members might wish to ask questions about the issue in general and where we are, and that's fine as well. We've got Amanda and Karen here who you all know, and we've got Neil with us on this occasion to help from the county's perspective as well.
So Timbers said.
I think just in terms of the response from Chris Henning at the county, we've moved that on in terms of discussion with colleagues just around clarity on, if members recall, the three first actions in the action plan, as to whether that wording is what we want to transpose across, or whether they're wanting, something slightly different to that. So we're just getting that firmed up at the moment. I don't know whether you want to say anything about the monitoring side or anything at the moment or not. No. Okay.
Can I call on Neil Bennett now to do a presentation?
Well, I'm
his
not
point of view.
entirely sure. I've got in preparation for this meeting, I prepared a bit of a paper, something more for my own benefit, more than anything, to work out all the interventions that are underway in Ashbourne. Now, I can either read that, which might be a bit boring and dreary, but or I can provide it to the committee as a paper, and for you to digest at your own. So I'm quite happy to do that, and what that basically does is go through, obviously, our commitment from a highways perspective to the intervention in Ashbourne. It then gives a bit of a blow-by-blow position statement on all of the interventions that highways are making, amongst other things. And obviously we're working collaboratively with yourselves on that. And I think it probably does indicate, when you see the weight of information here, there's a huge amount of intervention that's going into Ashbourne. which is not reflected elsewhere in the county, but is a reflection of the amount of investment that we've been able to lever in as well. So more than happy for that to be provided so that you can digest that at your own in your own time. Okay.
You're prepared to answer questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, okay. Right. Are there any questions for Tim or Amanda or Karen, or for Neil, in fact? Councillor Dobbs?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Neil, for coming. Without going into too much detail, could you give a sort of 4 or 5 sentence outline of how the plan has evolved? Because we are a fair amount of time, 2 years plus, from when it first hit the page, as it were. Could you just say how it's moved in that space of time? Thank you.
I'm not the expert in terms of how that's developed. I've been involved in fits and starts along the way. But what I can say is that the plan was obviously agreed from in a collaborative point of view with colleagues to put those points together of what seemed reasonable at the time to put into a plan. Now, in terms of the amount of activity in Ashbourne that's happened in the intervening period and the additional investment we've got, clearly that then means that, you know, there's options to review and adapt that action plan as well, which is obviously part and parcel of the thoughts that you were mentioning earlier, Amanda, as well. So I can't really provide any more information than that, apart from, I mean, the paper does, which, as I say, I'm willing to share, does indicate the sort of progress that has been made on those interventions that go toward delivering on the elements we've already talked about in the action plan.
Thank you, and that will be circulated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Reading this report, we've got a section here that says there's public support for a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit in Ashbourne. On what basis are you arriving at that? Because I've looked at the data we received from the survey you did of the public in Ashbourne, and only 30 plus more people were in favour of a 20-mile-per-hour limit than we're not. But then if you looked at the contributions from everybody in Ashbourne, it was sort of like a couple of % of the population actually responded. So on that basis, statistically it's insignificant. We can't really call that support, surely.
Tim?
Well, I think I haven't brought the public consultation figures with me, Councillor Murphy, so I've got them to comment on. From memory, there was positive support from a majority of people in that particular area as part of that consultation. We accept that consultation is not going and asking everybody individually and getting all the individual views. However, it was something of the items that were in the action plan. It was one of the ones which was received more favourably than many of the others. It's not to say that everybody supported it. It's not to say that all the comments were in support of it at all. But I can go back to the figures and have a chat with you privately outside the meeting, but I've not got them with me. But there was more support for it than there was non-support.
Yeah, 30 odd more people were in support than were against it. I've looked at the figures and whatever, and I'm sure your findings will be the same as mine. But that's not a basis, surely, for us to potentially try and spend money on a project like that. I've met quite a few people in the town. It's not very scientific, and nobody's for it. They say, well, it's very difficult to do 20 miles per hour in that area anyway. And then I know that there was a survey done in November for another reason, and the average figures for speeds up and down that hill were barely 20 miles an hour. So, and then of course I'm hearing with the changes with the Reborn scheme, it's going to narrow some sections of that road, which will be problematic, I think. So that will probably add to the fact that that's going to control the speeds as well. So I hear what you're saying. You're not going to approach everybody in the town, but you're going to ask us to approve, 20 miles per hour on the basis of very little support. So
That's not correct, Councillor Murphy. There's nobody asking you in this report to approve 20 miles per hour.
No, but eventually you could.
That suggestion came from members. It isn't something that officers put forward at all.
Fair enough.
and it was something we were asked to, officers were asked to consult on and did. It's not something that the County Council is supporting, and the letter from Chris Henning makes that very clear. However, it is something that when we had the public meetings, there was, broadly speaking, some public support for that. I can only report on what happened. It's not a measure that officers would put forward, and you've now got a letter from the County Council setting out their position very clearly.
Councillor G.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I'd like to just ask, in your introduction, or you mentioned about the amount of intervention concerning Ashbourne. Because how does this compare with the amount of intervention on other towns in Derbyshire Dales, like Bakewell, for instance, which I represent, and also Matlock and Wirksworth?
It doesn't compare. The volume of activity it just happens to be in Ashbourne a combination of the interventions that are planned, some of the funding that we've got from DEFRA to look at air quality. It's convenient that we use an existing air quality management area to test that option and those solutions in that environment, and combined with obviously the bus service improvement plan work also is an ideal location not only to promote the free running of buses, but also those interventions provide traffic management and control, which hitherto weren't available. So it's just happened that way that, you know, there's a whole combination of things, but compared to, like you say, in Bakewell and Matlock, none of those interventions are planned at all just at the moment, albeit that the backbone from a technology point of view, which we're deploying to support those measures in Ashbourne, are also going to be available county-wide, so Bakewell and Matlock will benefit from that in due course. But obviously there's not air quality issues in the same way.
Well, we don't know there is, because all the focus has been put on Ashbourne, because that's all I've seen. We're coming to this meeting, but it's interesting to know that it could be available for other areas.
Yeah, I mean, we've spent, since around 2015-16, we've been very successful bidding for additional funding from the Department for Transport to do intelligent transport system type interventions. Derbyshire Highways traditionally has been quite a low adopter of technology, but by having good relations with the DFT and obviously saying the right things, we've been able to lever in something like, from a county-wide perspective, something like £6 to £7 million worth of investment around intelligent transport systems. And a lot of that you might not see on the ground because it's the backbone, it's the back office. But the benefit to the county as a whole is that now is in place, so we can build on that.
Just one extra question, because this has been brought to me by Dermot's intervention. With the tests that you did on the 20-mile-an-hour scheme in Derbyshire, I think you did one, was it in Long Eaton and one in Buxton? 2 trials, one in Buxton, one in, yeah. Because I'm actually in favour of 20-mile-an-hour schemes, but not necessarily in towns like that. But I think they could benefit more smaller rural towns where you have traffic movements that are over speed because they're not sort of congested areas which cause them. Because, you know, to be honest, I mean, if you did a test in Buxton and Long Eaton, it's very difficult to actually drive more than 10 miles an hour or 5 miles an hour. But some rural areas that are supposed to be currently 30 mile an hour, it's very easy for people to drive around at 40 mile an hour, for instance, or 35. And I think there's other rural villages and towns. I mean, Ashford's one near Bakewell. And, you know, for instance, if you going into the centre of Bakewell, it's difficult to be fined for speeding, but you could easily have it as you're coming into Bakewell. So to me, 20 mile an hour is not really designed for towns like that, because I've seen it in other areas like Cornwall, for instance, where they've got blanket 20 mile an hour areas in rural villages just to stop cars coming through at horrendous speeds, and it's all about road safety. So I'd like to see Derbyshire County Council look at this again and think, did we do it right with these tests? Because maybe we didn't.
Well, a couple of things. I guess the content of the letter from Chris does sort of reinforce the thought that 20 mile an hour zones, speed limits are going to be done on the basis of safety, because obviously 20 mile an hour, it's a more rounded approach in terms of the environment, connectivity and, people's experiential of that. But I don't know whether you recall, but we did have another go at a set of trials some years ago prior to the Buxton and Long Eaton trial, which we did in the High Peak in Padfield. Now, at the time, my team were involved in doing all the before and after monitoring, and the same conclusion came out off the back of that in terms of the effectiveness of that as a trial. And also that then led to the development of a protocol, a speed management protocol, where we looked at all the interventions around speed. And that's why we create that statement that we would do 20 mile an hour only in an exceptional basis, because it was based on that evidence. And it was a huge amount of evidence that was collected to look at not only speed, safety, people's connectivity in the community, whether it opened stuff up. We looked at air quality as well, and it was marginal. The differences were marginal for the actual cost involved. So it is horses for courses, but it's based on a lot of evidence that's been developed and put in place for understanding what it is from a Derbyshire perspective. Anyway, does that help?
Let me just point out that to members and officers, of course, Matlock Town Centre has been subject to a 20 mile an hour speed limit for some years now. I don't know. I think it's also a question of time of day as well. In the evening, I think people there's tendency to speed, I suspect, and which doesn't happen during the day, as Councillor G has said. You probably can't drive much more than 20 miles an hour in most of Matlock Town Centre during the day, but it's the time of day that makes a difference.
Probably also worth saying is that enforcement is obviously a police matter, and they're not supportive of 20 mile an hour on enforcement. Just saying.
Thank you. Obviously, North Norfolk have got a completely different view to Derbyshire, because all their coastal towns, like Councillor G alluded to, are a lot safer because they've got 20 mile an hour speed limits going through them. So they're obviously happy to do that. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm obviously pleased that something is happening in Ashbourne. I'm very disappointed at the glacial way it's taken to get there. But I just want to know, because it's technology, I need to know a couple of things really. First of all, is it proven technology? What are the Derbyshire County Council and us, you're doing it on our behalf, hoping to achieve, and how are you going to do it? Because I don't fully understand how it's all working. To me, it's new technology and it's putting it totally, pretty well, a lot of it's left to the drivers to conform on some things about what we were told before about the actual messaging of it. I want to know what you're going to achieve, when are you hoping to see some results, and when are we likely to see, and the people of Ashbourne likely to see some evaluation? That's what I'm wanting to know, because it's gone on too long. Thank you.
Forgive me if I forget some of those, but you'll have to remind me.
I'm very good at rambling, I'm sorry.
That's all right. So in terms of what we're proposing, it is proven. What we've implemented in a back office, like I was saying, that can be then deployed anywhere in Derbyshire is what's called a urban traffic management and control system. They are national standards. All of the equipment that's attached to it is based on national standards. So we're not suddenly inventing something completely new for the backbone of this. What that means is, in certain locations in Ashbourne, we can connect traffic management control infrastructure, traffic signals, crossings, to it, and then we can then deploy control on those locations. So whereas at the moment, you will have control at locations, at those signalised junctions that operate within themselves, what you will be able to do in Ashbourne, because of the urban traffic control, is to connect all of those together. And what that means is that we can then design the movement of that traffic to create, or better movement of that traffic, so it's more coordinated. So whereby, and say from an air quality point of view, where we might have canyoning of air quality, we can move traffic out of those locations more easily. We've got to develop that, but the intent behind it is we'll have the backbone to be able to do that. So we have the standards. We have. We're not creating anything new. It's been around. The UK was the developer first in the world to do that 30, 40 years ago. So we're building on that. Our infrastructure is state of the art. It's absolutely state of the art what we've done. And the other thing that might be worth saying is you're more than welcome once we get to this stage of coming up to the control room up in County Hall and seeing how it works. More than happy to welcome you up there to see what happens. That same backbone also then takes the feed from what will be those roadside air quality monitoring bits of kit on the network, and will then also provide the same platform to actually report and receive that information, and then use that data to then inform that regional control. So it's it provides a myriad of options in terms of how we control. At the moment, you have no regional control in Ashbourne at all. You just got points, which manage themselves. You're not doing it in a region. The other thing that's probably worth mentioning as well is that the funding that we've got from DEFRA to look at air quality and to do real-time monitoring of air quality, that is new. That is completely new research, but it is based on proven technology of our preemptive traffic management system. I'll go into a bit of it in the paper, so I'm quite happy to answer more questions on it. But what that is unique, and what that allows us to potentially do is develop that off the backbone of the urban traffic control using the same data, but also to be able to inform users, i.e. road users, in advance of interventions on the network, so high air quality or congestion, to make different decisions. And we can do that in car as well as at the roadside. So that's all very new technology, but it's where the DFT is pushing us in terms of their wanting us to look at driverless vehicles and connected vehicles and all of that. But the beauty we have is there's a real application around air quality for Ashbourne. Did that answer all of those things?
Not quite. There was the most important bit for me was the time. When do you consider that you're going to be able to tell us that there's been a reduction? And just as a supplementary question, if you don't mind, Chair, is the stopping of vehicles in locations is going to increase idling in certain locations, I would suggest. So you're going to work hard, hopefully, to prevent the idling taking place in the negatively impacted areas.
Yeah. So as part of this work, we're looking to do some what's called microsimulation modelling, VISM modelling, which will provide the granularity in the detail to provide, because we're talking about really quite small changes around particulates. So that will provide us the data to inform and evidence the interventions we're going to make. So we're not just going to make it up and think, well, we hope for the best. We'll use the modelling to try and inform the approach that we take. Timing, the back office is there now. The signal, you might have seen some activity in Ashbourne in terms of upgrades to signalised junctions. The reason for that is to provide the kit in those locations to provide the sort of regional control I'm talking about. So it's happening now.
So when will it be completed, and when are you confident that we're going to get some feedback? Thank you.
Those two sites that have been upgraded will be finished in the spring. Those will go straight on to we'll have to develop the regional control, but we need the VISM modelling to be able to inform that, and we're in the midst of that procurement now. It's procurement, so we're moving as quick as we can.
As long as it's not over 2 years, it'll be good.
Well, I suppose the other thing to bear in mind is some of the funding. We can't wait that long. The BSIP funding, in terms of all of the improvements that you'll see with traffic signals and what have you, we've got to get that delivered by next March. So we've got to get that money out the door.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Franks, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, some of my questions have been answered already, but leak is has similar difficulties to Ashbourne and is also an aqua. How does Ashbourne compare to leak in terms of the mitigations to reduce air quality? And no idea. You're
I
not.
don't know.
You don't.
I don't know.
You're not aware
I
what
know.
how successful their mitigations have been.
Yeah, it's a different. I don't know.
Different
Sorry.
authority. Okay.
Right,
Thanks. Thank you.
Councillor Archer.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from Councillor Wayne's question about when we get the data, although I very much hope that the hard work and the measures that are being put in place do work and do deal with the issue of air quality, I do think there's a certain amount of scepticism amongst many people in the town that until you deal with the problem of the lorries coming through the town in such great number, that you're not going to deal with the problem of air quality. So it may be seen as a metaphorical question, but hopefully you can give me an answer. If we do get this data back and the measures that have been put in place don't have the desired effect because we're not removing the source of the pollution, which is largely the lorries, is what most people will believe, then what are our other options that are open to us going forward? You know, would we then, for example, be happy to revisit the weight limit option? I've obviously read this report and I can see the reasons why that's not been considered yet. But if the first measures we put in place don't work, to what extent can we ramp those measures up and look again at things like a weight limit?
I guess the intent behind that microsimulation modelling is to provide the granularity that we're after to be able to inform those choices. In terms of the weight limit information option, I'm guessing from an action plan point of view, we've got to, that's a continual process of review. But I guess the position we've got just at the moment in terms of that network, and I guess maybe a long-term option around that relief road, is that I'm not sure we've got a great deal of room to wriggle from what the statement in that letter from Chris indicates. But it's never a no, but I guess we have to be based on the evidence that we've got.
Just to very, very quickly come back. So just, I suppose, if we're still breaking the law in terms of air quality, at what point does that then become a heavy enough weight for us to take a more extreme measure? Because I presume we can't just keep breaking the law. So if the measures don't work, and that is what we've got to do, can we do it?
Yeah, forgive me for not being able to really answer that, because it's all ifs and buts, isn't it, really? Until we've actually got the data, we can't really decide which is the most optimal approach.
Thank you, Chair. I had the same question as Councillor Archer, really, about weight limits. But to add to that, if the pollution from the lorries going up Buxton Hill gets too extreme, have you looked at a reroute? Most of the traffic comes from Buxton, heavy quarry lorries, etc. Have you looked at alternative routes, which will take them down towards the A6?
I think we've covered this within the letter, and I think it has been discussed, and I think the options have been dismissed in terms of rerouting. The optimal route, rightly or wrongly, is the route that they take currently.
Well, unfortunately, that's when they're returning up Buxton Hill, the fumes pour out of the lorries. That's the biggest problem, isn't it?
Just as an aside, and I know in the action plan, it's probably also worth mentioning that there has been dialogue with the minerals industry, and again, I've put it in the paper. That happened a couple of weeks ago, and that was quite a positive dialogue with that sort of round table sort of discussion, with an absolute sort of dedication to make sure that dialogue continued, and there's a real commitment from that discussion for them to be involved with the development of the action plan as well. So you've got all sort of stakeholders interested in making that as where the improvements can be made, that they will.
Thank you.
Right, Tim, I think you want to come back.
If I could come in briefly, in relation to the last 2 points particularly, when an action plan is adopted, and DEFRA agree that, there will be a requirement to report to them on the progress of success or otherwise of those actions. We've said before in these meetings that those action plans are not fixed in stone. You're able to iterate them as you go forward, change them as you move forward, and they're able to evolve. and we would expect through that reporting process that any failure to improve air quality in that particular area would be something that would be picked up and would have to be acted upon. Can't at this time say exactly what that would be, but there is a process by which those things are evaluated and examined, and we will be using that. We'll have to.
Just also, just reminded me, Tim, bearing in mind we've had funding from government for the bus service improvement plan, funding from government from DEFRA, and we've also got our own capital funding in there as well. Is all of those things require us to report on progress of what we initiated. So one thing that we're not going to be short of is monitoring and evaluation of the interventions that we're underway with.
Councillor Bates.
Yeah, I'd like to come back to the traffic lights. Park Road has been completed. Derby Hill hopefully won't take too long. Station Road, that's going to be another part of the system. How long is that going to be? And will it all be, are we waiting for Station Road to be complete before it's all live?
I don't know the details around the programme, but it is obviously as part of the overall measures to provide that regional control I was talking about. Again, I go back to the point, we've got to deliver BSIP interventions by March next year.
Councillor Wayne again.
Yeah, it's only just a quick one. You mentioned about with the minerals companies, because obviously that is quite pivotal, I would suggest. I understand there was a meeting, I think the report said on the 28th of February, or maybe even before, but has anybody in this room received any feedback from the county officers what the result was from that meeting? Because it would be really handy, because at the end of the day, we're having to submit this air quality submission to DEFRA, and us that's being criticised for it, we would like to know what that result of that meeting was.
Yeah.
As soon as, within a couple of days, ideally, because we are talking about people's health and well-being here. So could you please take away from this meeting and maybe get it sent to the officers there, or maybe to the chair of this committee?
Yeah.
And we'd like to know what the feedback is.
Yeah. No,
Thank you very much. Sorry to come back, Chair.
as just to respond to that, the meeting was one that I've been informed about. Well, obviously I wasn't there. Was on the 13th of February. Now I think there was some elements of it that are commercially sensitive, so they would have to, maybe redact some information. But again, it's part of the action plan to create that dialogue. So as part and parcel, it'll have to be part of the reporting anyway. Yeah. So.
I think we are dealing with people's, potential health impacts. So it's important that we do get that. Thank you very much.
No more questions? Right, well, before we move...
Can I just provide a bit of advice?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
It was just before members moved into debate, just to draw members' attention to section 8 in the report, which is legal advice. Obviously, as stated, the Air Quality Action Plan is a duty of the council set out in the Environment Act, and as stated within the advice, that whilst the risk of challenge in taking the decisions before members today are low, there are some reputational risks, as Tim has set out already, in respect of any directions that we may get by non-submission of an air quality management plan. So keen to sort of, if members have got any questions on that, it'd be good to take them now.
Councillor Ripton.
Thank you. Yeah, in relation to the DEFRA letter then, can I just clarify, is it that we have no plan, or we have a plan but it's not ready to go, or, well, where are we, I guess, on that continuum?
Okay, well, this goes back quite a while, Councillor Ripton, before you were here, so it's a fair question. A draft action plan was developed between officers of the County Council, officers of the District Council, and with a degree of consultation with the representatives of the community, being Ashbourne Town Council and Ashbourne Town Team. And a number of actions were put together which were thought to address those matters. This committee wasn't satisfied that those measures would go far enough to produce a significant enough or a sufficient reduction in air pollution in that particular area. And when it came to the public consultation, as we spoke about earlier, there were a number of other items that were added into that action plan by this committee, which we were asked to consult on as well. That consultation took place and that was reported on, and we still haven't got to a point where where the committee has been satisfied that we can send something forward, we can adopt something to send forward to DEFRA for them hopefully to adopt. I think we've got to a position, and I'll grossly summarise where I think members have got to, whereby there's an understanding that the first three measures that were proposed as part of that action plan need updating. I think colleagues at the County Council understand that as well. There's a desire to see some quantification of those measures, to see, to be able to say how much each one will reduce air pollution by. Officers understand that that's something that will come with the micro-simulation that Neil's talked about. It's not available at this time, but will come in a further iteration of the plan, maybe in a year's time, which is the reporting schedule that DEFRA require annually, isn't it, Karen? And we're hoping that when we get that revised wording, that we can bring that to the first possible meeting of this committee in the new programme of meetings, and that members will consider it, and we hope be able to adopt that. We'll then put that forward to DEFRA. When I spoke earlier about potentially writing to DEFRA to explain the situation and explain that a updating report potentially to adopt the action plan will be brought to the first possible meeting of this committee, that's what I was really talking about. So we've got a number of actions. We believe that we're in a position where they need updating, and members may then be able to add their blessing to them.
No further questions? Oh, Councillor G. Right.
Yeah, if you want suggestions of what to do, just ask for more time and write the letter and ask them. I agree with that. So, because there were three choices, weren't there? So it's choice two.
Right. Before we move into debate, can I just apologise profusely for failing to introduce two vital members of staff behind me? Oh, she's gone. There's Angela Grattan and Lucy Harrison was here, but she's gone. Oh, right. Very good. Well, yes, they're welcome. In fact, they're vital members of staff at these meetings, so they need to be thanked for that. Right, so debate then. Would someone like to move? Councillor Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to move the recommendation 1, which is just noting, and then in terms of recommendation 2, if we look at 2.5, the second bullet point, to engage with DEFRA to explain the reasons why the submission of the AQAP has been delayed and to seek to agree a new date for the submission of the AQAP, exactly like Councillor G suggested. I think that's the way forward. And we've heard that how the action plan has evolved. It still needs some tweaking. And I'm greatly reassured by the fact that the corporate plan reads to produce an effective air quality action plan. And that's what we must be aiming for. And I think there's a lot of potential in what we've got. And certainly, as Neil has indicated, the County Council have pushed a lot of money in this direction. Whether or not that's what I would have done with that amount of money is another matter entirely. But they've certainly put some things in place. And the results will be interesting. And we will have results, which is enormously reassuring that we are monitoring this and we will know if it's effective, and we have a mechanism in place, if it's not effective, to produce something that is effective. So I've no hesitation but to recommend item 1 and 2.5, second bullet point.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wayne, did you want to second this?
Well, I can do. Yes, I will do. I feel that what Councillor G said and Councillor Dobbs said, I'm in agreement with that. But what Mr Braun said prior to that is that this has to be expedited, and we want it to the next available meeting in the new year, and we owe it to the people in Ashbourne to do what's right, and we must get this done and get this business sorted. I appreciate what the county are doing, and thank you very much for taking the time to explain it, because I'm a bit of a technophobe. So yes, I'm happy to second that. Thank you very much.
Councillor Archer. Are you going to? Oh, right.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Neil for coming tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing the 4 pages of interventions that Ashbourne have got. I think what members have to realise is, Councillor Wayne says the progress has been glacial, but I think behind the scenes, you know, our offices and Derbyshire County Council offices have been working very hard with this. You know, we all want, you know, this air quality action plan in place. But thank you very much, Neil, for everything and for coming to explain. And perhaps one of the things that would be a criticism of our working together is if we'd had some of this information and a little bit more communication over the months and years, it might have been a bit more helpful. But thank you very much.
Any further contributions to the debate? No? Well, all in favour of the proposal from Councillor Dobbs? It's unanimous. Yes, that's right. If you'd like to leave us, Neil, I thank you very much for thank you very much for your attendance. I think you can stay for the rest of the meeting if you like, but
You've been rejected him twice, Chairman.
yeah. He'd already packed his bag up, so I thought he's ready for it. Yeah. Right, goodbye. Thank you.
Short item now, Chair.
Right.
Item 8.
Yeah. Well, we move on to item 8. Thank you for your attendance as well. This is a report from Steve Capes, in fact, who's going to introduce it. That's the Derbyshire Dales Corporate Plan and the working groups. Obviously, we discussed this at some length at the council meeting last Thursday, so it's, as you see, the recommendation is that the report and appendices are considered and endorsed. It's fairly simple, really. But Steve, do you want to reinforce that at all? Or?
I think you've just done the introduction for me, Chair. It's here by an accident of timing. It should have been discussed on the 8th of February, but it snowed. Subsequently, there's been very full discussion at Council, and you know, Council has now made its decisions. I don't think there's anything else to say, Chair.
Any questions? Yeah, Councillor Dobbs.
Just a technicality, bearing in mind how we've been overtaken by events, can we actually endorse this, or have we better just note them? Because, in fact, some of the items have actually evolved from what's written here significantly, as it happens.
Yeah. Right. No questions. So we need a proposal, don't we, or a seconder rather, for Councillor Dobbs' proposal.
Councillor Archer.
Councillor Archer's seconding. Right. Very good. Okay. Vote then. All in favour? That's unanimous as well. Thank you.
Steve. Chairman, Steve.
Yeah.
Chair.
Yes, Councillor Dobbs is leaving the meeting.
Can I just double check? I haven't declared interest, but I did second the motion at planning committee for it to be refused.
Yeah.
I'm not named in the report, so I'm just checking. Do I need to leave the room or can I stay in the room? Sorry.
You'll go, right. Anyone else leaving? You're at the planning meeting? Yeah. Do all the members who voted a certain way have to leave the meeting then? I don't know. Pardon? Yeah. No, probably not. Right.
Isn't that the matter that's the interest, not the voting committee?
I think he's just belt and braces, really. At the end of the day.
Are we okay now, do you think?
Yeah, I think we're okay.
Yeah.
Crops up, I think we're all right.
Right. Yeah, sure.
You know, at the beginning of this meeting, we were asked not to...
Chairman, Chairman, could I just propose an adjournment for the moment while we just consider the interest issue that's been raised?
Yes, you can do that. Would you like to propose that? I'll propose it from the chair. Oh, I'll second that then.
Thank you.
Yes, better, that's right, yes.
No.
Oh, no, he can't come back. No, no, not yet, can he? No, that's right. Yeah, he will know what's going on. Right, better introduce this item. It's for planning appeal for Lees Farm, Wyerton Road, Ashbourne. Steve, are you going to
Yes, Chair.
reiterate what?
Thank you. This is a fairly brief technical report associated with two issues. One is approval of funding to deal with the appeal, which the timetable is set out in the report and is quite tight. And the other is in terms of dealing with the detail of the defence of the appeal. The proposals are set out in section 3 of the report is the way that's recommended to deal with that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions from members? Well, we'll move into debate in that case then. Proposer and a seconder for the recommendations. Councillor Archer and Councillor Bates. Right, thank you. Right. You wish to speak on the subject, Councillor Archer?
I'm just happy to move it. That's fine. Thank you. Yeah, and just as a member for Ashbourne, there's definitely considerable public support for the council's decision at the planning meeting. So on that basis and representing those voices of people in Ashbourne who've shown support for what the decision we made, I'm happy to move it.
Right. Councillor Bates, yeah, right, okay. Any further contributions? No? Right, we move to a vote then. All in favour? Thank you. There's one vote myself, actually. Right.
Those against?
Anyone against?
Councillor G?
Yeah. Very good, okay. Thanks very much. It's better get Councillor Dobbs back, I suppose. He'll wonder what's going on, won't he? Welcome back, Councillor Dobbs. We move on to agenda item 10 then, which is UK Shared Prosperity Fund and Rural England Prosperity Fund Town Centre Improvements Grants for approval. And it's a report from Amanda Brown this time, I think. Is it Amanda or Steve who's doing that presentation?
Chair, Amanda has done a lot of the work on the report, and I'm happy to give her and her team credit for that. But I have I suppose the pleasure of what's perhaps a good news, a positive report that we have before you today. You'll recall at the December council meeting that due to the putting on hold of the full Bakewell Road scheme in Matlock, that there was in the region of £868,000 worth of UK Shared Prosperity Fund and Rural England Prosperity Fund funding that was in danger of not being spent, and therefore officers were tasked with finding suitable capital projects to spend it. I'm happy to report tonight, Chair, that there are 3 projects before you. It's worth saying that they have all been considered in detail by the UK Shared Prosperity Fund Partnership Board. That is the board which is responsible for making decisions on Shared Prosperity Fund issues if they are in accordance with the investment plan which the council approved. These are in accordance with that investment plan, and they have made those approvals. The first one that's on your agenda is for the Western Gateway Phase 1 in Matlock. So that's the Phase 1 of the wider Bakewell Road project. There is £268,000 of shared prosperity capital there. Members will be aware that project is already, in fact, underway. It involves district council works to the bus station area to make it essentially a better environment for bus passengers, taxi users and other people who use that space, and also to make the gateway as you drive into Matlock look more attractive. There's also Derbyshire County Council works involved with that project, and as members may be aware, there is some delay on that. We understand that Derbyshire County Council is working to resolve its issues there, and just to be clear, those issues apply to all Derbyshire County Council highways projects, not specifically to this. Funding is already allocated for that project, both through the Shared Prosperity Fund and in the capital programme. So this is just letting you know that that's going ahead and getting your blessing for it. The second project is for Hall-Lees Park. There is a separate report on the agenda. Agenda item number 11 is including detail on that Hall-Lees Park project. So I won't go into any detail here, other than to say that that also was endorsed unanimously by the UK Shared Prosperity Fund Board earlier on today. And perhaps also to mention that that project, together with the Phase 1 project at Bakewell Road, means that Matlock keeps more than 82% of that original UK SPF allocation. That still remains in Matlock. The remainder, if I could say, Chair, goes in to the Wirksworth, the Meadows Rejuvenation Project. That's the only non-Matlock project that was eligible that did come forward. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund Board earlier today also approved that unanimously. They felt it was a very good project, and there's more information about that available if you require. But essentially, it's an excellent scheme to create a park, probably not unlike Hall-Lees Park in some respects, on the edge of Wirksworth Town Centre as well. So, Chairman, the Council's role in the UK Shared Prosperity Fund is being the accountable body and therefore signing off the funding. As I said, it's already been considered in detail. These projects have been considered in detail by the Partnership Board and endorsed by them. And that's why the recommendation is that the UK SPF capital allocations are approved in our role as accountable body. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Questions? Councillor Wayne, and then Councillor Slack.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to thank Amanda. I don't know Amanda well, but I did have a chat to her about 2 months ago, and it was highly informative, and she enlightened me to the ways of grants and things like that. So it was most excellent. Thank you. Only one thing I want to a couple of things really. Obviously, it's unfortunate we can't do toilets at the bus station currently. It would be beneficial there. It's although it's not a transport hub, but it's an area where transport goes from. I think it is quite important that we take a look at that in the future. My major concern, would you please take back to county or whoever, because I read that the tarmacking is going to go as far as the Ostello Lounge. Well, the worst piece of crazy paving on that particular road is outside Specsavers, and I know 2 people that have fallen over there, one of them quite badly, and I would like to see it go a little bit further, please, because it is really dangerous. So if you could take that away, that would be really helpful. Thank you very much.
Chair, yes, we'll feed that into the County Council. As members will no doubt recall, the area around Crown Square has got Yorkstone paving. The County Council was given a commuted sum to maintain and repair that when those works were done some time ago. So repairing them is, as you've suggested, Councillor Wayne, a role that the County Council need to hear about.
If I could just come back very fleetingly. I have raised this with the County Council in relation to vehicles parking on the pavement there. All this paving has been damaged by heavy goods and light goods vehicles parking on the pavement, and there is no regulation for the vehicles going on there. Obviously, there will be good pavers that they're taking up further down. If they want to repave that area outside Specsavers, then that would be great, but they do need to put some sort of preventive measures on there. They're saying that then it would impact on the highway. So it's something that we do need to talk to them about, if you would, please. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with you, Councillor Wayne. I feel quite strongly, actually, that the County Council should be undertaking those preventative works, like bollards, for instance, which you see in many towns, and that would prevent the problem reoccurring. But I understand the questions raised with planning, the planning department, about the original conditions for that scheme, whereby, or for Greg's it probably was, I forget which retail establishment it was, but I understand that the delivery vehicles were supposed to park to the rear, where Wilco's used to be, or Poundland as it is now. But obviously that's often congested by other vehicles or people who work locally, so that's an issue. But I do feel strongly that we've got an accident, a bad accident is waiting to happen if we don't resolve that issue. Councillor Hobson, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Amanda. I mean, you've obviously worked really hard to turn things around. But could I make a plea when we look at towns? Darley-Dale never seems to get its head up above the parapet. And also, you know, some of our larger villages, I'm sure other people would say for their villages, you know, Baslow there, I appreciate it's time constraint, but please remember these other places. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We've taken that on board. We were in the situation of having to turn this around extremely quickly, but certainly moving forward with, you know, any future funding opportunities that do come into the realms, the large villages and the towns, we will put support in from an economic development side to get places bid ready, which is what's needed.
I think generally the initiative needs to come from local parish councils and parish and town councils. And so if any other communities want to do something like that, and like Wordsworth, an admirable scheme, they need to get that together and put some applications in, I think, or draw up a scheme to try and get funding. Right, Councillor Ripton.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's fair to acknowledge, Steve, you did actually visit Hathersage, didn't you, and talk about the possibility of a scheme which didn't come to life. But I guess it's incumbent on all of us, to your point, to find a way to bring more of these things forward. If I can just ask a question, these are pretty time critical, aren't they? I think it's 31st of March 25, you've got to get the money away. Two questions. One, how confident are you? And two, what are the consequences of not getting the spend away in that time?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Vicky will tell you more about the Hall Lees Park project in a minute, but that's a land that's a space which is in the council's control. We own it. There's no one else really involved in that apart from the small element from the county council. But essentially, because we're in control of that, that gives us more confidence. The Matlot scheme, as you've seen, is already underway, and that's due to finish in the coming months. Worksworth have got confidence in as well. It's a project they've been working on for some time. Their town clerk is a good egg, and they've got a good group working on it. They're already well on the way. They've had expert help doing it, and they're currently at the tendering stage, so they're very well progressed. It's a well developed and well thought out scheme which has benefited from a good community engagement and consultation, so I think they're in a really good position as well.
Yes, having just seen the plans for the first time this afternoon, I'm very impressed by the quality of that. Yeah. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for explaining that, Steve, very well. Wordsworth was ready. It had got all the plans ready. It had to be ready for this particular scheme. It had to be ready. So, but just a question was, why at Matlock is a bus shelter going in the lay-by where the buses are when we're going to produce a waiting area in the entrance to the market, which is only a few metres away. So you've got a waiting area, and the buses no need to have a bus shelter at all. They just brought on the landscape as well, isn't it? Putting a bus shelter there.
There's also the entrance to M&S as well.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my question. Yeah.
As I understand it, Chair and Councillor Slack, the County Council bus team have recommended that and wanting to take it forward precisely for that reason. There is a waiting area within the bus station itself are buses that come into the off-road area in the bus shelter itself, in the bus station itself. However, they'll be extending the bus lay-by on Bakewell Road. Those buses will be on the road, and therefore for people waiting on the road itself, having cover, which doesn't necessarily mean they have to try and nip into Marks and Spencer's, would be beneficial for them. So it's really just to make things better for bus users.
It's the new waiting area hopefully is secure from the weather, and they'll see the buses coming and they can walk out and get on the buses. I think it's overdone really, but yeah, but if the county councils, we know control over the county council.
Yeah, I do tend to agree with you, Councillor Slack. Councillor G.
Yeah. When we come to debate, I will support this, but I'm still bamboozled. The question is, why has a town the size of Matlock decided it needs to have 2 bus stations? Because, we've got a brand new all singing and all dancing bus station at the railway station, which is a transport hub. And the existence of this second bus station obviously limits what you can do with that site. And I'm totally bamboozled. I'm not against toilets, as Councillor Wayne suggested, although you can nip into M&S and nip into their toilets if you want to. But having 2 bus stations is just an overkill.
Yeah, I think that's probably a question for the bus companies who have insisted on keeping those 2 locations.
Any further questions? Right. We move into debate then. Would someone like to propose, Councillor Wayne?
I'm happy to move that we accept the recommendation to use the allocations as approved for the 3 locations. I think it's a good way of utilising the funds and getting benefit for the town centres and also the parks. I fully appreciate that we need to do it as globally across the district, and that'll be looked at, and I'm sure we'll be as supportive to other projects. So I'm happy to move it. Thank you.
Councillor Slack.
I second that, Chair. I echo everything Councillor Wayne has said. I think these are 3 good projects really, and these were all ready. You see, ready to go. We had to be on time ready to get these grants. So. But I will support the rural villages very much so in future applications. Worcester's been on with this quite a long time. It goes back many years. We bought the Meadows a few years ago when it looked like in danger. Worcester's never had a proper park, like Matlock, Bakewell and Ashbourne. It's never had a proper park at all. So now we're going to have a lot of tree planting, a lot of community area, and a lot of biodiversity area. So it'll be a really lovely park when it's finished, and it's close to what works with town centre as well. That's important. Thank you, Chair.
That's excellent, Councillor Slack. And having seen the plans, I think I'm looking forward to seeing the results on the ground in effect in the next few months. Any further contributions? Councillor G.
This is my positive side. I'm fully happy to support this, and I'm hoping that Matlock looks much better. But what I would say is during my next 3 years on Derbyshire Dales District Council, I hope it ends up being longer, but who knows. But now, and we have some future funding, or when we have future funding, I hope Bakewell comes into a possibility. And of course now we've got a cocktail of political representation in Bakewell, so I've got a link into the coalition. If I can take Bob for a coffee, maybe we can get some money for Bakewell.
I think that the problem with that, Councillor G, is the fact that it's in the National Park, of course, so, and having been involved in quite a lot of projects in the National Park in the past.
But we've got sites in Bakewell.
Yes,
we've got the park.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Tennis courts. We've got the cricket pavilion.
Yes, that's right.
It's ready. It's oven ready.
Yes, right. Very good. That's all right. You need to speak to the town council probably. Right. Who's going to propose this one? Is it? Oh, you are, Vicky. Right. Very good. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Vicky.
So I'd just like to say thank you to the committee for approving that. Now I've come to ask for the money. In terms of the projects that we've got within the report today, there's four projects. The first project is the skate park, and I just want to say thank you, because there might be people of the skate park group that are watching tonight. They've really put in a lot of effort to get it to a place that we are ready to go with. They've done a consultation with the sort of like fraternity of skate park users, as well as members of the public, and we had over 300 responses to that last year, and they've been working on a design, so we're in a position now to go out for procurement. And in addition to the splash pad, there's a bit of consultation we need to take place with users of the splash pad to see what bits of kit they would like to see on there, and that will take place as well in due course. The procurement we're going to ask for permission from CLT to use a framework, so that speeds up the process somewhat, and we will be looking to go out for that procurement in mid-April. The sort of third and fourth project is to do with the coating to the footways within the park, and also working with the County Council to put in a multi-user trail for Broadwalk, which will connect the White Peak Loop, and it will start linking that towards through the park and to Nelston Place. And those are the sort of four projects that we've got on. There's a bit more detail within the report in terms of what we're looking to achieve in terms of improving accessibility for users, particularly of the splash pad. The pool at the moment doesn't really lend itself for that, so that there's kit that we can put in there that will make it universal for all abilities and disabilities. And in terms of the footways, I just wanted to point out it is a resin coating that is going on the existing infrastructure. So I know that there's maybe some issues around drainage that people might be concerned about, and that's not something we're going to be able to address specifically with this. The topography of the area and the fact that it is a flood reservoir obviously lends itself to flooding. That's what it's supposed to do. But we can and will look at jetting and cleaning out the drains within the park to try and encourage and to improve what's there. But in terms of improving the infrastructure as a whole, that's not part of the project. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
Yes, thank you, Vicky. I was quite impressed when you said before the meeting, at the pre-meeting, that there was some people in the action group for the skate park who, in their 30s probably, and were involved in the skate park when it was first set up a few years ago. So they continue.
Chair.
So their children probably will be inheriting that benefit from them. Right, Councillor. I think Councillor Wayne was probably first. But no.
Yeah, thank you. Am I to take it that from that chair that you might be taking up some skateboarding then? Yeah, thank you. Just whilst I note, I put my hand up before you mentioned about the drainage, and there are significant issues with drainage on that Broadwalk. Sometimes, and it isn't all to do with the retention of the water. It is each one of those drains is meant to be connected to the side of the river, or drainage. So I would urge, and thank you for saying it, but I would urge that it is done, because sometimes it can be 5 foot wide and about 5 or 6 inches deep. You know what I mean? Sorry, that isn't metric, but it is a big issue, and people regularly complain about the quality of that boardwalk, but I'm totally committed to this, and I think it's marvellous that the money's being spent to enhance our wonderful green flag park. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Just a couple of small questions. The paddling pool, historically, have we had lots of problems with the splash pad at Bakewell? Was it always...
Apologies. Not that I'm aware of particularly. The pool we do have issues with in terms of we need resource there on a weekend to do the chlorine and measurements, and that is quite expensive because we have to rely on overtime, and it's also because of the flooding, unfortunately, that happens regularly in Hawleys Park. A splash pad would be able to manage that better, and it wouldn't have the same impact in terms of trying to resolve those issues. So I'm not aware of massive issues with regards to that, but I know there are are proposals potentially in the future capital work programme to look at Bakewell and Ashbourne and look at those splash pads.
Certainly, I recall them sort of, it's been close to people, and we've seen emails about that. The other thing, I'm delighted to see that this is like an adjunct to the going through the park over the is it from the arc where the trail finishes to get to Matlock Town Centre? Because if you are on your bike there, it just comes to an end, and it is pretty dangerous. So I welcome that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. A question about splash pads, picking up on Councillor Hobson's point. The Ashbourne experience is not a particularly good one. Is this because of the age of our splash pad, or is there large inherent running costs? How in a properly maintained working splash pad, what are the yearly running costs for water, for example?
Thank you. I don't have all of the information that you've requested. I can get that to you at a later date. I mean, my understanding is it's more about the age of the equipment, and we don't have a sort of maintenance contract which we would look to employ within regards to the pool or splash pad in Hawleys Park. So that's something that is part of the proposals. So it's more of an ad hoc basis that we look at. Obviously, they get decommissioned and recommissioned at the beginning and end of every season. But in terms of, if I could just give you maybe the last year, it's about £13,000 we've spent on the pool, specifically to do with maintenance. And resource-wise, it's about £4,000 in overtime on a weekend. With regards to Ashbourne, in the last year, it's been £4,500, and the one at Bakewell's £2,500. So there is considerably less amount of money that's been spent in the other areas of the district compared to the pool. But if you would like to send me any more specifics, Councillor Dobbs, I'm more than happy to get that information to you.
That's very kind, thank you.
Just going back to Councillor Wayne's point about drainage and the Broad Walk, I agree 100%. It is appalling now, and I think it's important that officers or contractors actually investigate each gully and the drainage channel and make sure that they can get connection through to the river. We don't want gullies to be cleaned out only to be overflowed in very shortly after they've been cleaned and the resurfacing has been carried out. So, any further questions, Councillor Slack?
Thank you, Chair. In regard to Hawleys Park, as we all know, it's a floodplain. It's a proper floodplain. There's gates come across and it's sealed off, and it's a floodplain. That's why it's important to keep the drains from Crown Square in area really clear, so the water can get onto the park. In regards to the park and being a floodplain, in 2000 the park was completely flooded. The tennis courts was knocked down, and it was quite a lot of repairs had to be done. With climate change, this is going to get far worse as time goes on, and we're going to see more flooding in the park. So my observation is that different things like new skateboard area that need to be, are they high enough up to withstand the flooding?
Right, any further questions? Oh, yeah, you can reply.
In terms of the materials we're going to be using, it's prefabricated steel and composite boards, so it's not going to be wood, so it would withstand, and it's at least 20 years guarantee with that. So in terms of addressing your question, where it is now is fine. The materials are going to be upgraded and would be more robust.
At Worksworth they're using concrete for skateboard parks, so which is I thought Matlock would do the same. But
Well, I think it'd be quite good to have a different variety of skate park as well, because they have their own sort of benefits and negatives in terms of that as well.
Yeah, but it'll withstand flooding.
And so will this one.
Yeah, thank you.
I suppose it's the only Matlockian here, I suppose. But I'm happy to propose it. I think it's going to be of benefit, and as I say, it's going to enhance the town, and hopefully the nice Councillor G, hopefully something will happen in Bakewell, and that'll be good there. So I'm happy to move it. Thank you.
Councillor Franks. Very good, thank you. Yeah. Any further contributions to debate? No? Right. So all in favour of the proposal and second the recommendation? Right. Thank you. Right, very good. That was unanimous.